V sign is a hand gesture in which the index and middle fingers are raised and parted to make a V shape while the other fingers are clenched. It has various meanings, depending on the circumstances and how it is presented. When displayed with the palm inward toward the signer, it has been an offensive gesture in some Commonwealth nations since at least 1900. The more widespread use as a victory sign, V for victory, with the back of the hand toward the signer, U+270C victory hand in Unicode, was introduced in January 1941 as part of a campaign by the Allies of World War II. During the Vietnam War, in the 1960s, the V sign was widely adopted by the counterculture as a symbol of peace. Shortly thereafter, it also became a non-symbolic gesture used in photographs, especially in East Asia. The meaning of the V sign is partially dependent on the manner in which the hand is positioned. If the palm of the hand faces the signer, i.e., the back of the hand faces the observer, the sign can mean an insulting gesture in Australia, the Republic of Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa and the United Kingdom. The number 2 in American Sign Language. With the back of the hand facing the signer, palm of the hand facing the observer, it can mean the number 2. Victory, in a setting of wartime or competition. It was first popularized in January 1941 by Victor de Lavallee, a Belgian politician in exile, who suggested it as a symbol of unity in a radio speech, and the subsequent V for Victory campaign by the BBC. It is sometimes made using both hands with upraised arms, as United States President Dwight Eisenhower and, in imitation of him, Richard Nixon, used to do. Peace, or friend, used around the world by peace and counter-culture groups, popularized in the American peace movement of the 1960s. The commonality with the symbol's use from the 1940s was its meaning the end of war. V, the letter, used when spelling in American Sign Language. When used with movement, it can mean, air quotes, flexing fingers, palm out, one or both hands. This hand shape is also used in a number of signs in many sign languages, including, in American Sign Language, to look with the palm down, or to see palm up. When the pointer and middle fingers are pointed at the signer's eyes then turned and the pointer finger is pointed at someone, it means, I am watching you. 8. The ordinal second in American Sign Language has the V sign palm forward, then the hand turns yaws until the palm faces backward. As an insult.
The use of the V sign, the forks, as an insulting gesture, including the use of the upward swing at the elbow.
The insulting version of the gesture, with the palm inward U+1 F594 reversed victory hand 10, is often compared to the offensive gesture known as the finger. The two-fingered salute, also the forks, in Australia 11, is commonly performed by flicking the V upwards from wrist or elbow. The V sign, when the palm is facing toward the person giving the sign, has long been an insulting gesture in England, and later in the rest of the United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, South Africa, India, Pakistan and New Zealand. It is frequently used to signify defiance, especially to authority, contempt, or derision. As an example of the V sign, palm inward, as an insult, on 1 November 1990, The Sun, a British tabloid, ran an article on its front page with the headline, Up Yours, Dolores, next to a large hand making a V sign protruding from a Union Jack cuff. The Sun urged its readers to stick two fingers up at then President of the European Commission, Jacques Delors, who had advocated an EU central government. The article attracted a number of complaints about its alleged racism, but the now-defunct Press Council rejected the complaints after the editor of The Sun stated that the paper reserved the right to use vulgar abuse in the interests of Britain. On 3 April 2009, Scottish Association football players Barry Ferguson and Alan McGregor were permanently banned from the Scottish national squad for showing the V sign while sitting on the bench during the game against Iceland. Both players were in their hotel bar drinking alcohol after the Scottish defeat to the Netherlands until around 11 a.m. the next morning, meaning that both of the players breached the SFA discipline code before the incident as well, but the attitude shown by the V sign was considered to be so rude that the SFA decided never to include these players in the national lineup again. Ferguson also lost the captaincy of Rangers as a result of the controversy. 18. McGregor's ban was lifted by then SFA manager Craig Levin and he returned to Scotland national squad in 2010. Steve McQueen gives the sign in the closing scene of the 1971 motorsport film, Le Mans. A still picture of the gesture was recorded by photographer Nigel Snowdon and has become an icon of both McQueen and the film itself. The gesture was also flashed by Spike, played by James Marsters, in Hush, a Season 4 episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The scene was also featured in the series' opening credits for all of Season 5. It was censored by BBC Two only in its early evening showings of the programme. For a time in the UK, a Harvey Smith became a way of describing the insulting version of the V sign, much as the word of Cambronne is used in France, or the Trudeau salute is used to describe the one-fingered salute in Canada. This happened because, in 1971, show jumper Harvey Smith was disqualified for making a televised V sign to the judges after winning the British show jumping derby at Hickstead. His win was reinstated 2 days later. 24. Harvey Smith pleaded that he was using a victory sign, a defense also used by other figures in the public eye. Sometimes foreigners visiting the countries mentioned above use the two-fingered salute without knowing it is offensive to the natives, for example when ordering 2 beers in a noisy pub, or in the case of the United States President George H. W. Bush, who, while touring Australia in 1992, attempted to give a peace sign to a group of farmers in Canberra, who were protesting about U.S. farm subsidies, and instead gave the insulting V sign. Origins. A commonly repeated legend claims that the two-fingered salute or V sign derives from a gesture made by longbowmen fighting in the English archers at the Battle of Agincourt 1415 during the 100 Years' War, but no written historical primary sources support this contention. Medieval illustrations and tapestries, however, depict English archers giving the sign, as do tapestries hanging in Angers Castle, home of the Angevin Plantagenet dynasty. Citation needed. This origin legend states that English archers believed that those who were captured by the French had their index and middle fingers cut off so that they could no longer operate their longbows, and that the V sign was used by uncaptured and victorious archers in a display of defiance against the French. In conflict with this origin myth, the chronicler Jean de Wavrin, contemporary of the Battle of Agincourt, reported that Henry V mentioned in a pre-battle speech that the French were said to be threatening to cut off 3 fingers, not 2, from captured English bowmen. Wielding an English longbow is best done with 3 fingers. Neither Wavrin nor any contemporary author reported the threat was ever carried out after that nor other battles, nor did they report anything concerning a gesture of defiance. The first unambiguous evidence of the use of the insulting V sign in the United Kingdom dates to 1901, when a worker outside Parkgate Ironworks in Rotherham used the gesture, captured on the film, to indicate that he did not like being filmed. Peter Opie interviewed children in the 1950s and observed in the lore and language of schoolchildren 1959 that the much older thumbing of the nose, cocking a snook, had been replaced by the V sign as the most common insulting gesture used in the playground. Between 1975 and 1977, a group of anthropologists including Desmond Morris studied the history and spread of European gestures and found the rude version of the V sign to be basically unknown outside the British Isles. In his Gestures, Their Origins and Distribution, published in 1979, Morris discussed various possible origins of this sign but came to no definite conclusion. Because of the strong taboo associated with the gesture, its public use has often been heavily penalized. As a result, there is a tendency to shy away from discussing it in detail. It is known to be dirty and is passed on from generation to generation by people who simply accept it as a recognized obscenity without bothering to analyze it. Several of the rival claims are equally appealing. The truth is that we will probably never know. Victory sign. Second World War, V for Victory campaign. Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister, giving a V sign in 1943. Churchill was initially unaware of the ulterior meaning of holding up his hand like in this gesture, 1942. On 14 January 1941, Victor de Lavallee, former Belgian Minister of Justice and director of the Belgian French-language broadcasts on the BBC 1940–44, suggested in a broadcast that Belgians use AV for victoire French, victory, and victoire, vrijheid Dutch, victory, freedom, as a rallying emblem during the Second World War. In the BBC broadcast, de Lavallee said that the occupier, by seeing this sign, always the same, infinitely repeated, would understand that he is surrounded, encircled by an immense crowd of citizens eagerly awaiting his first moment of weakness, watching for his first failure. Within weeks, chalked-up verses began appearing on walls throughout Belgium, the Netherlands and northern France. Buoyed by this success, the BBC started the V for Victory campaign, for which they put in charge the assistant news editor Douglas Ritchie posing as Colonel Britain. Ritchie suggested an audible V using its Morse code rhythm, 3 dots and a dash. As the rousing opening bars of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony had the same rhythm, the BBC used this as its call sign in its foreign language programs to occupied Europe for the rest of the war. The more musically educated also understood that it was the Fate motif, knocking on the door, of the Third Reich. About this sound, listen to this call sign. Help info. 34-35. The BBC also encouraged the use of the V gesture introduced by de Lavallee. By July 1941, the emblematic use of the letter V had spread through occupied Europe. On 19 July, Prime Minister Winston Churchill referred approvingly to the V for Victory campaign in a speech, 37, from which point he started using the V hand sign. Early on he sometimes gestured palm in, sometimes with a cigar between the fingers. 38. Later in the war, he used palm out. 39. After aides explained to the aristocratic Churchill what the palm-in gesture meant to other classes, he made sure to use the appropriate sign, yet the double entendre of the gesture might have contributed to its popularity, for a simple twist of hand would have presented the dorsal side in a mocking snub to the common enemy. 41. Other Allied leaders used the sign as well. The Germans could not remove all the signs, so adopted the V sign as a German symbol, sometimes adding laurel leaves under it, painting their own Vs on walls, vehicles and adding a massive V on the Eiffel Tower.